Hello everybody, Geoff Watts here. This episode 111 of the Agile Pubcast. Paul and I get together in our virtual pubs once again. We're still in lockdown. This time we were discussing a recent conversation we had when we invited the product owner guy, Roman Pichler, onto our prestigious Pint series. We got talking about how the product owner role has evolved, how Roman got involved in the product owner space, whether product owners should come on to your retrospectives, building empathy with the team and the product owner and our users, and many, many other things. If you're interested in listening to the whole episode, then get on over to patreon.com/the Agile Pubcast, and our full Pint members get access to the full conversation with Roman, plus the video episode of this and all of our other Pubcast episodes. Other than that, grab yourself a drink, settle in, and enjoy the chat. Cheers!
There we go. You having a wee?
Oh, is my mic still on?
No, it's something funny. You're in the loo, Jeff. Come out the toilet, quick.
Oh no, schoolboy error. Left the mic on while I went to the...
I'm at the bar. What do you want to drink? It's my round this time. What are you drinking?
Can I get a pint of the Sound and the Fury, please?
Oh yeah, they've got that on tap actually. Let me just pour you one. You do your trousers up, and I'll pour you a drink. There you go, sir. Ooh.
It's a sort of boxing analogy, I think.
Anything to do with Tyson Fury, or is that more just a coincidence?
No, I don't think so. It's a like a face-off mashup type thing. So it's a Incognito versus Falcon. I think they're two different types of IPA or ingredients or something. And they've mishmashed them together to make this. What is it? Trying to look for how strong it is now. Why can't I see? Oh god, now I'm worried. 6.2%.
Okay. How's the taste?
Oh, just finished pouring up. That's slightly cloudy.
It is quite cloudy, yeah.
Yeah.
You sure you didn't just come?
Hazy, I think is the term they prefer.
You sure you didn't just come from the toilet with that?
Oof.
It does look a bit, dare I say it, wee-like.
I think you need to see a doctor. Yeah, that's it's quite similar to a lot of the ones that I've had recently, actually. Sort of citrusy, pineapple-y-ish, fruity, hazy. Yeah, a little bit of a tang, but not too sharp. Nice.
Very good.
Hides its strength.
Well, that's always a dangerous thing, isn't it? For me, certainly. Creeps up on you. I've got. I went to Sainsbury's this week. It was my turn to go to do big shop. So I've come back with. If you can see that, it's Henny's dry cider.
Whose?
Henny's.
Okay. Is that a dog called Penny?
Henny with a H.
Oh.
Henny with a H. Yeah. I picked it up because it said Froome Valley. Now Froome is in Somerset near me, but then I've now read the label better, and it's actually in Herefordshire, which is nowhere near me. But it's a Henny's dry cider.
So there's two Froomes, is there? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think there's a Froome in North Somerset, which is near me. But this is a different Froome. Froome Valley, I suppose, is different. So this is a dry cider. Now I have to explain. You can see this, but the viewers, the listeners can't. That bottle that I've just emptied was already half empty. Now I'm not suggesting here I'd already drunk that, because I'm actually cooking with the other half of the bottle.
Okay.
So I've got half a bottle left, which I'll try now.
What are you cooking?
Gammon in cider today. In the slow cooker, Jeff. Bit of honey, bit of cider, salt and pepper.
There you go. And how is it? Appley?
Yeah, tastes a bit dirty, a bit earthy, I suppose is a better word than dirty. But
you sort of rolled up your top lip there as you scrunched your nose up a bit.
Yeah, it's got kind of a bit of a rough aftertaste. But it's certainly very fizzy, very quite clear, quite crisp. but got a bit of a bitter aftertaste.
Well, good to see. I was about to ask you whether that's a new jumper, but I actually know the story behind that, so I don't need to. It's not a new jumper, is it?
No, it's not. What do you mean there's a story behind my jumper?
Just I haven't seen you wear that jumper before, but it's not new because you found it recently.
I have, yes. I had a clothes purge. So, lockdown's obviously getting to me. I'm going through all my cupboards and drawers, and I've recycled. I didn't sell. I gave to charity. 3 bags of clothes that I've probably accumulated over 15 years, and I've uncovered clothes that I never knew or forgotten I had. So I'm currently having a revival of my wardrobe from old stuff. I have bought some new stuff. I've treated myself. Been working hard, so I thought I'd treat myself to some new clothes. But I have also revitalised some of my older stuff.
Oh, very good.
Bring it back into fashion, or not, as my wife would say.
That was good to see you. It wasn't fashionable the first time round. Try again.
No, exactly.
Keep trying it until one day everything comes back into style, so they say.
Eventually, maybe. Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, and you, mate.
So we're here to talk about our little chat with Roman.
Roman, yeah. It was nice to see him again. Feels like a long time since we did see him, but obviously weren't physically face to face, but we were over a Zoom call, which was nice. Nice to check in with him.
He's got a very similar setup to me.
Sorry?
He's got a very similar setup to me. He's got
what do you mean?
Office sort of shed thing in the garden.
Yes. And yeah, he seems like he's very much set up for kind of home teaching, home learning, and working remotely. He seems. I think, like you mentioned on the when we spoke to him, I think he'd made some of those transitions to more remote working a while back. I think he tried to cut down his travel a long time before we had to.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. We spoke to you called him the product owner guy, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, that's how I think that's how he's known. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't like it. I don't know. Not really sure. We did put it to him, didn't we?
We did, and he kind of he was a little bit shy, wasn't he? A little bit sheepish. That's the word. A bit sheepish about it. But no, I think when people do ask us or ask me for what would you read or where would you go for more product owner knowledge and resources, I generally point them to Roman.
Well, yeah, so I think that's it. I think if you ask anyone in the agile space to name someone as an authority on product owners, product managers, then Roman would be one of the names that came out very, very quickly. And we asked him how he got into it, whether that was always his aim, whether he was always interested in product management, whether that was his goal, or whether it just sort of emerged and evolved.
We did. Let's play the clip.
I think it's been an area of interest for me for a long time, but there were several developments really that led me down that path. One was starting up my own business and having to take care of the services and products and thinking about them more. So, that sort of really kind of caused me to start practicing product management properly.
So I suppose it's not surprising, is it, when you do become self-employed, because I think I knew him first of all when I think he must have been still working at Siemens. That's where he started. Well, that's where I met him, not at Siemens, but while he was working there. But I think certainly making the leap to, and we've probably suffered the same thing and done the same thing, that you do have to take much more ownership of your own products. We are a product in ourselves, I suppose, and we are selling ourselves, aren't we? So not in that way, but
yeah,
I think
there's definitely an element of branding, development, messaging, all that. And he has, I think, of all the people that I've known over the last 15 years, that he's one of the handful that I would say that has successfully created his own brand and image and niche very successfully. Which, if you're looking for some advice on product leadership, then it's nice to know that he can do it himself.
Yeah, yes,
So-
it's very true. Yes, very much walking the talk. And yeah, I think, and he's got quite a following. I think certainly on Twitter, I know that you put a tweet out there recently about saying that we've spoken to Roman, and not that not the first person that commented that tweeted back said Roman has the best laugh in agile. Sorry, that Roman has the best laugh in agile, and I think he does.
He has got a good laugh.
Not the first time that so that someone tweeted that response to your tweet, but someone's also spoken to me and said, "Well, it's got a great laugh, Roman. It's got a great laugh. It's a playful laugh." Yeah, but he's a lovely guy, and he has kind of carved out that niche in the market for himself, and he has been that voice of product ownership. Probably before it became, more mainstream from a Scrum Alliance or from a Scrum point of view, he was certainly shouting about the importance of product leadership and product ownership a long time before now.
Yeah, because a lot of the instigators were from the software space, not necessarily from the product space. And there was a very big divorce between IT and the business, and so a lot of us have been trying to bridge that gap, bring all these parties together. Roman's been pulling and pushing from other parts of the organisation, so it's been quite a useful. And when we've worked together in the past, it's been quite a useful combination, if you like. And it's interesting to see how he's changed his emphasis over the years. And I think this came through for him when we were asking him about his evolution, his emergence, and how I'd say that if you're really breaking it down, the first 5 years of Roman Pichler was very much around tools, techniques, practices, roadmaps, that kind of thing, vision boards.
Yeah.
The last 5 years have been very much on the soft skills, the leadership, the self-management, the stakeholder management, negotiation, emotional intelligence things.
Yeah, and let's play a little clip. He gave you quite a nice summary of that. Hang on a minute.
I mean, when I first looked at product management and started working with product people, it was really all about the hard skills and, in a way, that the core practices, and initially also more tactical practices and development related practices. I remember literally nearly 20 years ago sitting down with one of the lead product manager and looking through use cases, piles of use cases that she'd written, and talking to her about the need to prioritize them so that we could run some iterations. I initially focused a lot on these hard skills, but I think over the years I learned that while the hard skills are important and that expertise is extremely valuable for product people, without a doubt that the people skills, the soft skills are just as important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it has changed, and the product owner, I think, is a lot more of a and I think I mentioned this on the call, I see it as a lot more of a collaborator rather than a customer in that Scrum team setup. I think
that was an honest mistake, looking back in hindsight from an Agile Manifesto perspective, and even XP, talking about customers, especially when a lot of organisations were using Agile internally and thinking about internal customers, and that split of power almost. When you think of the word customer, you think the customer's always right. That customer satisfaction, these kinds of terms kind of put the people who build the products on a lower level than the people who are buying them.
Yeah.
Do you think that's had an impact?
I think so. And certainly product owners, I mean, the term product owner is a better one, in my opinion, than customers anyway, but trying to represent and see even business people on the same footing as, because developers, engineers are in effect still business people. We're still working for a business. We're still trying to build products together. And I think that has changed. I know I meet a lot more product owners now that are much more embedded within teams, and certainly feel like they're working with colleagues and peers rather than suppliers. I think that's gone the right way in many respects. It's created a better relationship.
So here, there's always been a bit of a debate, and we didn't actually cover this when we spoke to him, but there's always been a bit of a debate between product owner and product manager. And for me, regardless of whether product manager has baggage before the term product owner came along, which I think it does, but regardless of that, I think just the words manager and owner have a massive impact on the dynamics within a team. And there's no getting away from the fact that a product owner was intended to have some management responsibilities, not necessarily line management, but some management responsibilities. But having that almost overlap of terms, I think, has been quite problematic for a lot of teams.
We talked a little bit about empowerment. This is linked to what you're saying there about the right product person in the right role and being supported by that organisation to do the job fully. So let's just play, and Roman spoke quite a lot about this, so we'll just play a little clip.
And often product owners, product people aren't adequately empowered. They don't really have the authority to make the necessary decisions and stand up to senior stakeholders, including, the managing directors, and say no and push back.
So this was a particular reference to kind of how, where does the product owner sit within an organisation, and how comfortable should they feel to push back? And I still see this now that very good product owners, very knowledgeable, very driven product owners still feel to a degree they can't challenge further up the organisation, and they don't have full autonomy to do those roles as they would want to do them and to drive the product in the direction that they feel it should go.
Well, and this harks back to the days when you and Roman were teaching together. One of the whole big points that I know Ken was trying to make with regards to language was that this language should be provocative in a way. It should be almost a test case. So if, for example, like you say in there, and Roman was saying that these product owners, they don't have the power, they don't have the empowerment, they don't have the autonomy, then you can't realistically with integrity call them an owner of a product.
No.
At best, they're a custodian, a babysitter, rather than an owner. If you're going to own something, you have to have ownership of it. And so that should, if you're calling somebody an owner and they don't have ownership, that should be really, really visible as a conflict. A flag. But it wasn't just about empowering them, although I think that's probably the one thing in my opinion that has almost been secondary in a way, but I guess that depends on where you're coming from. But the first big effort was to try and help product owners get the development teams to feel more empowered, get them involved, get them building some empathy for their users, their customers, getting them involved in contributing towards the solutions emerging, rather than just saying, okay, give me the requirements. And I was having a little bit of a debate with someone about this week, actually, saying, well, people, it's all very well saying you're going to empower people, but what if you give them the opportunity and they don't step up? A lot of times you do that and they just don't want the empowerment. Now, it's a conversation that I've had many times, and it's not necessarily something that I think you can really comprehensively prove one way or the other, but there's a lot of evidence that, from my experience, where actually it's not that they don't like the empowerment, it's the fact that they don't feel safe with the empowerment. They don't feel that actually they've got a chance of success, and that the consequences of failure are not catastrophic. So it's a risk-reward, really, for these people. If I don't take this opportunity, if I don't take this empowerment on, I kind of got some safety.
Yeah, it reminds me. You've reminded me of this was a class I was teaching a couple of weeks back, and let's say 7, 8 people on the call. We were all talking about the senior leadership. They're very much kind of Scrum teams. There were some product owners in the room talking about the directors of the company, and it's amazing what everyone was just assuming. that we can't say that, or the response was, well, they'll push back on that, or they won't accept that, or they'll need to see this. And when I asked the question, somewhat deliberately saying, has anyone actually checked in, asked that question? And they went, no, not really. But they were all, to a degree, quite frightened to actually approach them about something that they'd already assumed what the answer would be, or they assumed their personality would dictate how they would react and how they would. And it was the most junior person in the room. She'd only been in the company a couple of weeks. She said, I'll have a chat with them. And she said,
well,
that's
quite beautiful, but also in a way not very surprising at all, because I think we had, I can't remember when now, it might have been before Christmas, we had a bit of a conversation about the topic of learned helplessness, didn't we?
Yeah.
This idea that you can very easily forget what's caused you to be so cynical or so scared, and you just sort of accept limiting beliefs about what's possible for you, for your organisation. And it might take someone completely brand new to say, oh, a minute, I think, I've seen this work elsewhere and I don't have the same baggage that you guys have, so I'm just going to do it. And as long as they do it before the culture gets them down, then great things can happen. Yeah,
you've got that energy, haven't you? Absolutely. You mentioned about empathy, and I know Roman had something to say about empathy, particularly with between product owners and development teams. Let's hear that.
It is tough though for product owners, and sort of striking that balance between building a close and trustful connection with the development team members, but at the same time also engaging with the stakeholders, the key stakeholders.
I think this was in particular reference to some of my questions around whether we see development teams as stakeholders and people, they're expecting the product, a transactional relationship between the product owner and the development team. So tell me what you want and I'll deliver it. Tell me what you want and I'll deliver it. Or do we see them as much more colleagues, stakeholders, sounding boards for the feasibility of our ideas, or do we just want the developers to accept what product owners have given? And I'd like to think, I very much come from the train of thought now that I think there's some really creative, really talented, really passionate engineering teams and development teams that I've worked with that have got some really great ideas, that I'd like to think there's a humility to a product owner's role that will accept, let's say listen, not necessarily accept all those ideas, but certainly give the development team an opportunity to sound some ideas and some suggestions to the product backlog.
Well, this is where it all harks back to Roman's point around soft skills being more important, because it's a lot more difficult for someone to, having listened to somebody's idea, say thanks but no, than say we haven't got time for any more ideas, or this is the most important stuff we know. So you're listening to them, you're building a relationship, they're sort of putting their trust in you with their idea, and there's a little bit of them that wants you to take it on because that's validation of their idea and validation of them. And so you're kind of shooting them down as a product owner if you're not going to take it on, which is a lot harder to do without losing that relationship. You still want them to bring ideas in the future, or an idea that's only half formed and it needs to be iterated upon, it needs to be worked with. And that's where I think a lot of product owners, maybe unconsciously, don't want to get into those kinds of conversations. Perhaps they don't want that level of empathy, because then it's harder to take the more difficult decisions. Maybe.
I do think there's an interesting relationship. Some development teams that I spoke to very much, we talked about certainty before, but we like the idea of certainty, and even if the product owner doesn't have the certainty, just give us some certainty in what we should do next. Give us some guidance. And this is what Roman was alluding to, very about the difference between the additional burden of leadership. Let's got a quick clip on this.
Product owners should offer some leadership in the product space, and I would certainly agree with that. I do think it's important that product owners have an opinion about where to take their product. And I do think it's important that product owners articulate this opinion to the development team and to the stakeholders. But I also believe that it's equally important to take the opinions, hold the opinions lightly, and not forget to cultivate an open mind. So it's sort of that balance, right?
Yeah, holding those opinions lightly. That's a good phrase.
Mm. What is it you say? Listen, talk and argue as if you're right, but listen as if you're wrong. Have I got that right? Have I mixed the words up?
Yeah, and whether that applies between a development team and a product owner, I'm not sure, because I think the level of safety is different, and you're much more of an expert on this than me with regards to status levels. But the development team should be very much on an even keel, if you like. There's some differences in terms of experience and respect and longevity and whatever, but there is a level of responsibility for the product. Somebody was saying yesterday, I can't remember who it was, I was in a conversation with, I think it was in like a big social chat like Clubhouse or something, and this someone was making this point that it's all very well for a development team to be empowered with agile, but at the end of the day it's the product owner who's going to be remembered for whether this product is a success or not. That product is going to go on that product owner's CV. Those developers, they can go and find another job somewhere else. No one's going to remember the products they were on. And it did smell a little bit of bad experience. Did smell a little bit of almost bitterness. But there is an element of truth there from a status responsibility accountability perspective. If I'm a product owner and I'm being held responsible for the ultimate success of this product, and my development team can come or go. Ooh.
I think that's also probably centered around the usually the numbers involved, right? So there's, in many cases, the product owner is a very singular role. Yes, in truth, there may be situations where multiple stakeholders are helping that product ownership decision, but inevitably.
Where did that phrase "single ringable neck" come from? Where was it?
I heard it was Yahoo. I don't know whether that was an urban myth that somebody working at Yahoo. It was a phrase that Yahoo were throwing around in terms of that's what product managers should be. I don't know if it was true or not, but I was quoted Yahoo, maybe falsely, but maybe someone can tweet it and tell us if I'm wrong. But I think there is an element there of your neck is further out. You're sticking your neck further out than in a development team. There's a safety in numbers, isn't there? The fact that potentially, can I say that I did that? I did some of it, but I didn't do all of it. So there's and I think I've seen that change in teams. I've seen teams that have Scrum Masters to their dues that have actually worked on that hard to try and instill not just a definition of done, but a definition of pride. You should be able to create this product as if you're willing to put your name on it. And there's one team that said we should be able to ring our parents and put my parents' phone number, so someone can ring up my mum or dad and ask them. I'd be that proud they could talk to my parents about it. And I think that's, rather than just being done, I mentioned this a while back on a blog post, but not just being done, but being proud of what we've done, I think is a different way to look at it in terms of how developers need to have more of a stake in the product.
Yeah, I think the product owners that I've worked with anyway, they can tell. They don't necessarily need it. I don't think you were suggesting actually having something written out as a definition of proud, but no. They can sense when the team does have that sense of pride in what they're doing, and they care, even if their neck isn't on the line. They almost act as if it was. And again, bringing this back to that empathy word, the more empathy that we have for one another, the more that we actually care about the people as much as the product. So yes, I want the product to be successful, but I also want my product owner to be successful because I have empathy for them, I care for them, and my product owner wants me to be successful. Now the danger with that for some people is that it becomes too personal, and you risk a bad project ruining friendships. And there's a very strong argument that work isn't about friendships, work is about getting stuff done, right? But I think it's a very blurred line.
I think it can have, people have memories for those things, don't they? We tend to remember our negative experiences more than we do our positive ones. So there is a danger of that. I agree that people take it too personally. Bringing it back up to present day, one thing we did talk about, which unsurprisingly came up, was the whole COVID situation. We kind of quizzed Roman a little bit on how he's seen product owners evolve their working practices and coping with perhaps more remote working. So you've got a little bit of some of his thoughts on this. Let me play this one.
I think there's been a massive shift anyway in the last 5 to 10 years away from qualitative to quantitative, ultimately market and user research, and more product people using more and more powerful analytics tools for various reasons. One is because it's easier and it's quicker and it's way cheaper. We just then have to be careful not to be too biased when we look at the data and interpret it.
I think he was saying that this is tooling, which unsurprisingly for many teams now is becoming more important when you can't connect face to face with people. And he does raise a very good point. I'd never really thought about this, that you can have better tools, cheaper tools, more data, and data's great. Data's our friend. It allows us to make informed decisions, but it can't be used in isolation. And that was a very valid point, that I think even during these times we can still have the opportunity to meet even virtually with customers. And I think he put it quite well. He said you might be able to, the data might tell you what's happening, but not necessarily why it's happening. And it's harder to tap into perhaps the psyche of users and why their behaviours. It's harder to read behaviours through data. And I think that's a valid point.
Yeah. There's always been a trade-off for product owners, getting that balance. But I think, what he was saying there is even more spotlight on the temptation to go for the quicker, the sort of more indirect, the more distant kind of engagement with customers and development teams as well. It's a little bit harder now to have those informal conversations that we had before. So it's a challenge.
I think it was quite candid about how product ownership has changed, but he was also quite as the interview went on, we got a bit closer to understanding a bit more about Roman and maybe the side of Roman that people don't know. And we've got obviously the full interview is a full hour. I think it's just under an hour, which obviously if you're on Patreon you'll be able to see that full interview. But it was quite nice towards the end of the interview. Roman started he talked about his choices, his decisions in terms of becoming so close to product ownership, and he talked quite candidly, didn't he, about his how he might be perceived in the community, which I thought was quite quite a nice poignant moment in that interview. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
it kind of slowed down a bit, I think, at that point.
Yeah,
in a good way.
I mean, it's nice. We've been able to. Three of us and others have gone through similar kind of journeys, and had similar kind of challenges and the like. And it's seeing where he is right now. It's interesting, and it's a bit of a double-edged sword in many ways for him. I think he obviously loves his job. He was really quite clear and passionate about that. Still. Which is, and you can understand why.
And I'm sure as you do as well, and that as your following grows, you do feel a much more of a sense of responsibility, and probably much more. And he said this, more careful about what you say and how you say it, and that must be quite, I imagine, quite difficult and quite challenging to have to think more. Because I suppose certainly my thinking is around this 10, 15 years ago. You can shoot from the hip a bit more, and you can be a bit more controversial, provocative.
Well, you've used the analogy of us as products.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, we were in our startups. We were just these cheeky startups, new kids on the block. Nothing really to lose, no reputation.
Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about upsetting the status quo. In fact, that's what we were there for, causing a bit of fuss. But in many ways, Roman and the like are now the establishment. And so there's people who are challenging that unless he stays keeping himself relevant, if you like. And he's done a great job of doing that. But that he's now got a lot of reputation to lose, and those products, you think of back to, it's probably very not one for our younger listeners, but Gerald Ratner undid his empire in 15 minutes, didn't he? He built it up over 20 years and undid it in 15 minutes with one speech. And I think products, brand, reputation can easily be tarnished. And I think I'm putting my experience onto his now, but thinking engagement in things like social media, where it's very easy to get drawn into things, get misinterpreted, sometimes deliberately, sometimes not, and that's it's a pressure.
Yeah, very true.
Well, it's funny. I mean, when you talk about where we are now, where he is now, and there is that risk of failure, perhaps consciously, subconsciously. I think he hinted at, and we actually started the conversation by talking about how product owners need to be comfortable with failure in order to innovate. Otherwise, we just stick with small changes.
Yeah, let's we had a clip from Roman. Let's play the clip.
Try and do something that is truly innovative, that is truly new. I think it's generally much easier if you do something similar to what's out there already, something similar to what the competitors are doing. I think whenever we try and innovate, there's a risk of failure. There's a risk that things don't work out. And some people are more comfortable with failure, and some people are less.
I would say that for a product and for a person with a reputation, a brand, I think that fear just grows as time goes, and his, as you were hinting at there, his following has grown, his reputation has grown. More to lose.
And certainly, that first step he took, he was the first Scrum trainer, and he was. I was number like 34 in the Scrum trainer membership list, and he was probably 33 if he had his piece of paper signed just before mine. But Roman and I, the story is that Roman and I both became Scrum trainers on the same day, with Ken Schwaber back in 2006. But he was the first Scrum trainer to step into that fully, into that product owner space, which of course was a risk, and was an experiment. But he did put himself out there, and I think absolutely. And he mentioned this in the interview, the more you open yourself up to those little experiments, mistakes. Oh, that didn't quite work. I think you become more comfortable with it. I think that might help you innovate more as you grow, as you grow as a product owner as well.
Yeah. It's good. It's good to catch up. Always good to provoke our thinking.
Yeah, it's good. Very good. If any of you are interested in listening to the full episode, you can find it online at patreon.com/the agile pubcast. Have a look at the membership options there. But our full Pint members will get full access to the video interview with myself, Geoff, and Roman, and you can find that online.
Also the video of this episode as well, and all the others.
Video of many episodes.
But nice. I'm out. It's my round. So
last orders at the bar.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. See you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.